Hey everybody, welcome to the DM Sports Talk Network, and this is the Roommate Debate podcast with Dan Martinez here and Joey Menta. This is episode four. Um,
Or
so getting into the groove of things. Same structure as last time, of course. No guests today, but we do have two special guests planned for Wednesday, which we're really, really excited about. They're two of our good friends and two that really like to test the boundaries of sports debate for sure. But for today, it's just me and Joey. We got a good episode for you. So we'll start out with our start bench cut segment, of course, becoming a fan favorite segment, it seems. So we'll start out in the NBA world with something I think might actually be a little bit difficult, to be honest with you. Sabonis, Pascal Siakam, and Bam Adebayo. All three really, really good big men. Siakam more of a small guy than the other two, but still same type of player. But for me, it's a hard pick between the three of them because of Bam's rising into slight stardom now. But personally, people might argue with me on this, but I'm going to start Sabonis.
Ooh.
And I know I sound a little crazy, but I'm starting Sabonis on this one.
Definitely not starting him.
I'm starting Sabonis
I'm not
because,
starting him. Okay.
look at the team. Look at the Pacers this year without Victor Oladipo. They were fourth in the East,
He's
I
their main
believe.
guy, but you got to look at it from the point how Pascal and Bam, they're both gonna. Pascal's already a most improved player, and he's tremendous. He's an NBA champion, and he's the clear leader of that team, I think. And his all-around game has developed. He was great in the playoffs last year, and Bam Adebayo, he's a rising star. I mean, he's one of the leaders on the Heat, and he's part of the reason why they're so good this year. They're a powerhouse in the East, and I just don't think Sabonis has put the Pacers at that kind of level yet. I think he's a great player too, but he's not better than Bam, or definitely not better than Pascal. So I'm definitely not starting Sabonis. In fact, I'm cutting Sabonis.
Really, I'm starting him because their roster isn't as talented from top to bottom as the Raptors are, and in my opinion, not as talented as the Heat. But they're right up there with both of them, fighting for a top playoff spot in the East, which isn't that easy. I mean, you look at the top six teams in the East; they're all pretty good. I mean, they're all top 13, 14 teams in the league. I would put them as. I feel like the bottom one is probably in that 13, 14 range in the league, but either way, I mean, he led them for the first part of the season without Oladipo, and when Oladipo came back, he needed a slow start to his season to get him back into full health. Sabonis has just been amazing. I mean, he was an All-Star this year, the secondary piece in the trade for Paul George, obviously a secondary piece, but something that, I mean, he might be the most valuable piece in that trade now because of how amazing he's been on the contract he's on. I
The
mean,
Raptors and Heat are in the playoffs too.
I get that, but I mean, the Raptors NBA championship was Kawhi Leonard. Let's be honest. It was 100% Kawhi Leonard.
I
Kyle
wouldn't say
Lowry wasn't amazing in the playoffs. Pascal was obviously very good, but
Pascal was very good.
Kawhi had
Yes, Kawhi
40
had the biggest
games
impact,
of 30 or more points in that playoffs.
but it's not like Pascal he helped tremendously. He had 30 points in game one.
Obviously, he helped and he was great. I'm not diminishing from his greatness. I think all three of these guys are great, great players.
And he could have led
But
them back this year.
I'm benching Pascal, and it's close for me, and it's a bold opinion, but I feel like I could win a lot of games. I don't think Sabonis would be my set one on a championship winning team or anything, but just as a pure team player, he brings down a lot of boards. He scores a lot of points. He plays really, really well in the paint on defense. I don't see any problem with taking him. I feel like all around he's a little bit better by a tiny bit.
I would
And it's a bold take, but it's just personally watching them both play. But I'm cutting Adebayo. I've only really seen 1 year of him being good. So I would have a little bit of trouble starting or benching him over these two guys. But I mean, I like Sabonis. I really do. And when he made the All-Star game, I was really, really happy because he's a great player. He works his butt off in the game. He plays a lot of minutes for a team that's just as gritty as anybody else in the league. I mean, you can't discount all of that. Stats say one thing, and his stats say he's an amazing player, and then his hustle says even more. So I'm going to start Sabonis, bench Siakam, and cut Adebayo.
Yeah, I would completely disagree with that. I would start Pascal Siakam. I think he's the second best power forward in this league behind Anthony Davis. I mean, he's proven to improve tremendously, and his game has just developed so well into this league, especially when in terms of winning. He's NBA champion. I know he was behind Kawhi, but look at this year. I mean, no Kawhi. He's clearly the best player on that team, and they're a second seed in the East right now. Again, they were second seed last year. You got Bam Adebayo, who has proven and who he's shown to be a threat defensively, better than Sabonis defensively, probably better than Pascal defensively, but and he's made a huge impact on the Miami Heat. And then I would cut Sabonis. I just don't think he's nearly as good as both of them, but he's definitely a rising star.
I mean, I can't completely disagree with you because, I mean, the logical argument would be to say start Siakam, obviously, with all he's done. But, I mean, Sabonis has gone fairly under the radar for how amazing he's been and how valuable he's been for that Indiana Pacers team. I mean, there's an argument that he's been slightly more valuable than Oladipo, and I love Oladipo as a player. He's awesome. He's a great player. He's a great leader.
We're not talking about him.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, Sabonis has been so good, it's hard to just kind of discount it and be like, yeah, cut him out of these three. I feel like he has to have an edge over Adebayo because he's been doing it for a little bit longer, and he's been doing it at a higher level, it seems like. I mean, Adebayo is averaging, I think, 16 and 10. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was like 16 and 10. And if I remember, Sabonis was like 20 and 10 or something like that. Bam's a slightly better defender, it seems, but Sabonis is not a bad defender. So it's not like he's a very big liability or anything on that end. So I have a hard time just discounting that and putting him on the back burner. So I'm starting him. I'm making the bold pick.
That's very bold.
I mean, gotta have him. I mean, speaking of bold picks, moving on to our second start bench cut in the NFL, arguably the boldest demander when it comes to contracts we've seen in a little while. And we'll get to one of the other bolder demander of contracts in the baseball section. But our quarterback round, Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, and Jimmy Garoppolo, three extremely highly paid quarterbacks. It's disputed whether or not they should even be paid close to what they're being paid. Especially with Dak's demands. I think it's ridiculous. We've been over this. We talked about it. We don't believe anything of what he demands is right. But when it comes to starting them, benching them, and cutting them, personally, I'm starting Kirk Cousins. I get the whole big game loser type of guy, but Dak has proven that he loses a lot of big games too. You haven't really seen him win any big games. I mean, he wins a lot of games, but when it's necessary, I mean, he went 8-8 last year, and lost the biggest game of the season with a healthy team to an extremely unhealthy Philadelphia Eagles roster.
He wasn't healthy himself, though.
I mean,
and he still stayed on the field. I mean, I don't like the Cowboys, but you got to give him credit. He was playing through an injury that whole time.
No, he was tough, and I mean, I don't think he's missed a game his whole career, if I remember correctly.
No.
So that's definitely something that's awesome. I mean, it's something you want in a quarterback. You want him to be on the field if you're going to pay him. If he's going to be your leader, you want him there with your players on the field when it counts. But he hasn't performed when it counts. So when it comes to Cousins, I mean, at least last year he won a bunch of games. He looked great. He had a few down games, but so does most of the middle line quarterbacks. But I mean, in my eyes, Kirk Cousins looked great. The only hard part about this start bench cut is whether I'm going to bench Garoppolo or Dak. Because, I mean, Garoppolo went to the Super Bowl. Whether it's a product of his defense or his run game, he still went. He still got there. Dak hasn't won a playoff game, if I remember correctly. And he's been to the playoffs, I think, multiple times in his career already.
He won a playoff game.
He won one?
He beat the Seahawks. Wait,
won one.
no,
No,
Or
no,
did
the Seahawks beat them.
or did they beat the no? They beat the. They won one last year. Who was it? I'm pretty sure it was against Seattle. No,
Was it against the Packers? Maybe.
no. Who they won a game last year. I'm positive about that. I just can't. It wasn't against the Rams. I swear it was against it was the game Zeke choked in terms of running.
I mean, either way, he's got one
They have
playoff win. Then
yeah, he has one playoff win. Dak Prescott has one playoff win.
he has one playoff win. Okay, well, either way, I mean that's one win, right? So I just have a little bit of trouble with that. Oh wait, no, they beat the Seahawks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they beat the Seahawks. Um,
Then they choked against the Rams.
Yeah, they choked against the Rams. I mean, the Rams ended up going to the Super Bowl, so it's not like they really choked.
No.
The Rams were prolific offense that year.
Couldn't have. Look, I don't care if they weren't in the end zone, if the Saints weren't in the end zone yet. They weren't. They're what? There would have been only like the 5. You throw it past Michael Thomas, he's in the end zone. That was.
I mean, yeah,
terrible.
Yeah, but going off these guys, I mean, Dak's got one playoff win. He choked in the biggest game. I mean, I get he was slightly injured, but I mean, he only limped them to an 8-8 to like an 8-7 record at that point. Anyways, it's not like he was, 10-5 at that point and going for the 11-5 division win. He was going for a 9-7 division win in arguably the worst division in football, almost definitely the worst division in football. So I just had so much of an issue seeing that. And like, nothing against him, fantasy football, I have him on my teams. He produces because he puts up big stats, but he doesn't win when it matters. Luckily, wins don't go into fantasy football, so it don't really matter for me. What?
Prescott?
Yeah, Prescott.
And he's good fantasy because he has very good offense.
Yeah, I mean, I have all 3 of these guys on one of my fantasy teams together in our dynasty league together. And I start Dak over the 3 of them most of the time, but in this case, when it comes to just regular football, I'm taking Cousins. And it's just so hard for me to decide between Dak and Garoppolo, but I'm going to give the edge to Garoppolo right now. It might seem crazy, but I'm giving it to Jimmy G just because, and I get, look, it might come biased because he played for the Pats, but he doesn't anymore. He's played the bulk of his career with, the Niners.
On him to win games for you at all. I can tell you.
He went to the Super Bowl, though, and to get there, it can't just be everything else.
He had like 4 touchdowns in the divisional game.
Believe me, I know he was definitely helped, obviously, by the rest of it, but you have to be a competent quarterback.
G is not good. Like, he is a solid game manager. He can wind the clock down, but in terms of winning the football game and relying on him, I don't trust him between either of those two. I think he's the worst at that. I don't think he's as good as either of those 2 quarterbacks. So I'm going to cut Jimmy G. I know he went to the Super Bowl, but he's just not that great of a quarterback. He doesn't put up like amazing. I mean, the other 2 put up better stats, and he's just not as good as them. I mean, he did make the Super Bowl, but he was heavily helped out by his run game, his tight ends, his offensive line, his defense, his coach, his everything. You can't trust him to win football games. He can't lead you down the field. You saw what he did in the Super Bowl, completely choked it. Okay.
I mean, I don't think that's as much him as it was the coaching. Kyle Shanahan did the same exact thing.
He wasn't making the throws he needed to.
No, he wasn't perfect, and it part of it goes on him. But
he was winning
just
the whole
like
game until I'm pretty sure the 4th quarter.
Like it wasn't Matt Ryan's fault though in the 28-3 game in that Super Bowl. It's not. No, it's all taking your foot off the pedal, and then all of a sudden a great quarterback comes in with a great coach and goes ahead and takes advantage of when you take your foot off the pedal and you try and get conservative. I mean, they were running away with it. In both times, they had it in the bag if they just kept going with the same game plan. But instead, they stopped. They went to the run game. They got stopped, and points got put up on the board against them. And that's what's going to happen if you take your foot off the pedal. So my main argument between Dak and Garoppolo, though, is Dak has an extremely talented offense. One of the best offensive lines, one of the best receiving cores, one of the best running backs in the league. He had everything he needed to put points on the board against every team he had. He didn't do it. Garoppolo did it with what he had. he at least used what he had to put points on the board and win football games. And that's what matters, is the wins as a quarterback. I mean, you could be the
Great.
least talented quarterback ever. If you win a bunch of games and you go to a Super Bowl, you get the credit because you're the leader. You're the guy who goes on the field, you give the orders, you're the general. I mean, that's how it is. So if you're using what you have to your advantage the best way, that's called a winner. And I'm going to take the winner over the guy who I can't trust with what I give him. I mean, I felt like last year you could give Dak everything, give him the perfect offensive line, the perfect receiving core, the perfect running back, and they would still go 8-8. And whether that was coaching or that was him remains to be seen, because all we've seen him with is Jason Garrett. So this easily could
the
switch
Prescott
next year.
thing. He can't come in clutch at all. But he's I don't think he's like great, but he's not awful. So and you need
No, I don't think he's awful. I think these guys are 3 middle of the line, borderline.
you need a quarterback who can stay out there, even if he's not that great, and just stay out there. And he doesn't get injured. You know, he won't come off the field. He's tough as nails. So
You're right about that.
I'm gonna give the slight edge to Prescott, and I'm gonna start him. I think he's a little bit better than Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk. I would bench Kirk. I think what he did this year was very good with the Vikings, but you know he was on the Redskins for a while, and he wasn't amazing. And then I'm just not a big fan of Garoppolo's game. He's just not clutch. He's not that talented. He's a good game chewer, game clock manager, but he's just not as talented as either of them. And I don't think the Cowboys are going to go 8-8 this year. I think they're going to be pretty good.
No, I think they're going to be good too.
They got a new coach. I don't think he's a great coach, and I don't know how.
But he's better than Garrett.
He's better than Garrett, but Mike McCarthy's not much of an upgrade.
I mean, he did pretty well. He won a Super Bowl in Green Bay.
Yeah, but
I mean, to win a Super Bowl, you can't be a crappy coach, plain and simple.
I don't know. I consider that more of Aaron Rodgers. I think he was bad.
Yeah, but either way, I mean, Rodgers has had a bunch of losing seasons too, if I remember correctly. I mean, it's not like he's had perfection. So I'm still going to give McCarthy credit. I'm not going to say he was carried.
I just don't know how good of an upgrade for the Cowboys that would be. So I'm going to start Dak. I think he's the best out of those three. Not by much, but I think he's the best. And then I'll bench Kirk, and I'm cutting Jimmy G.
Okay. I mean, I can't argue heavily with it, but I mean, I'm just going to stick with my guns on Kirk because I feel like
you, starting Kirk. I think I just think Prescott's given more, and I think, you know, he can be a little bit – I think that's why he's better.
I mean, it remains to be seen.
Not elite. We know Prescott's not elite, but, you know, if you take away all those weapons that he has, I would definitely reconsider my decision.
Okay, is it fair to say that these three are like the Joe Flaccos of the current NFL? They're like the guys who they win games, but like people are always asking, like, are they elite talents? Are they elite game winners? Like, I feel like it probably works better with Dak because he's probably the most talented of the three.
He's the most talented. He's mobile. He can move around and throw.
But I feel like it's the same argument with Joe Flacco, where like Flacco was talented, but he won a lot of games more from his defense and his coaching than he did from his arm and big plays from him. Which is where I think like maybe these three guys are the new.
So we can't really start comparing him to these guys.
Well, yeah,
something.
But I mean, like, there's a lot of people who argue Peyton Manning's second Super Bowl was nothing to do with Peyton Manning. I mean, and it's a fair argument. I mean, nothing against Peyton Manning. He is in the top 3 or 4 best quarterbacks of all time. He's an amazing player, but at the end of his career, he was terrible. I mean, he just wasn't good. He was a major liability. He was injured. And in that Super Bowl against the Panthers, that was all defense. I mean, like, he didn't even make plays when he had to. Like, at least there was the argument with, like, the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl where it was like the Patriots offense at least made a play when they needed to. The Broncos offense was just awful. It was terrible. So, I mean, I feel like these guys are the new Joe Flaccos and the new, like, carry job quarterbacks where, like, they're talented, but they need a lot around them. to win. And if they don't have that, they can't even come close to the elite status. Is that a fair thing to say?
In that term, yes, because neither of them are elite. We know that, and I don't think Jimmy G's that good, but they definitely do need a lot around them. It's going to take a lot. I mean, I think Jimmy G, he was definitely the most gifted when in terms of what he has around him to win, but he himself, he's not good enough to win.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that for sure. I mean, there's not a lot of quarterbacks who are good enough on their own to win.
To help him. He had a lot. He had a great coach. I mean, he had everything. It's
I mean, yeah, they had everything they needed.
That for him, he's not.
And I think they'll
clutch.
be fine this year. I think they'll be right back in contention to get there again. I think that's an easy estimate to make. I mean, what they lost, they replaced with younger, more athletic talent. So, I mean, in that measure, I think they'll be right back there. But he's definitely, all three of them are definitely quarterbacks that need help before they can get somewhere. Like, they're not the guys who can carry an injured offense. And they're not the guys who can carry a team with no defense. So, I think in that aspect, I think it's a fair estimate to say they're the Joe Flacco's of today's NFL. And like I said before, talking about crazy contract demands and crazy personalities, we move on to the MLB, to three of the biggest names in the outfield that you can find. There's Ronald Acuna, Juan Soto, and Bryce Harper. A lot of people know my opinion on at least one of these guys. I'm very, very open about it. I really do not like Bryce Harper. Nothing against him as a person, really. Just as his talent, he's never been consistent. He's a very, very streaky hitter. After hitting like 240 or something, he went to the Nationals front office, and this is where the contract demand comes in, and he said, I want 10 years, $400 million. And that floored me with my opinion of him. I mean, there's a time and a place to demand those kind of numbers. If your name is Mike Trout, that's it. And even Mike Trout, I'm not sure he deserves $40 million per year. That's a lot of money. Baseball is the most physically taxing and probably mentally taxing over a season because it's 162 games in a year. If you make it to the playoffs, you have to win or play up to 18 more. I mean, you got to play a lot. So I just don't like Harper in that aspect, and I think automatically I'm cutting him. And people might hang me for that and hate me for that, but I don't care. Bryce Harper is being cut out of these three for me. I'm starting Juan Soto. He has been amazing since the second he got to the Nationals. I mean, no one really realized in the first place that he was the Bryce Harper replacement that they needed as a personality, as a player, as a talent, as a leader. He immediately became a better leader than Bryce was for that team. As a young leader, as just a fiery player, somebody who's going to give you every little bit of him. And I love Juan Soto. He's an amazing player. He really is. He's outplayed Harper already there. I know Harper won an MVP, but he lost in the playoffs that year. So it's not like he did much. In Soto's, this was his second year, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
His second year, he won a World Series, something that Harper couldn't even get close to, really, in his time there. I have no problem with starting Soto in this in a heartbeat. Until Ronald Acuna wins that many games, I think Acuna is probably a little bit more talented. But just as a leader and a pure example for the team, Soto starts. I'm cut. Harper's cut. I don't even think that if you make the argument that he's better than Juan Soto and Ronald Acuna, if you say it based just off the talent we've seen, maybe that's a fair argument. Maybe. But he hasn't been consistent ever. Soto came in and immediately caught fire. He's had 2 amazing seasons already. Acuna's been amazing since the second he stepped on the field. So Acuna's being benched and Soto's being started. That's just how I am. How about you?
I'm not gonna say that Bryce Harper's overrated like you, because I don't think I think you're literally just looking at batting average, which I think you need to look at a little more. I'm not gonna say he's overrated. I think he's a top 10 outfielder, but he's not better than these two. what we've seen that he's just not. These guys are younger, have much brighter futures. They're better. I'll say it as a Phillies fan, and they're a lot better. I wouldn't say Soto's a lot better. Well, I'm not gonna say they're a lot better, but they're better. So I'll cut Bryce only because we're looking at two of the future in terms of outfielders. So I'm gonna cut Bryce. I'm going to start Ronald Acuna.
Okay.
I think he's a top 5 outfielder. I think it's close between him and Soto. It's a tough one to choose, but I'm going to start Ronald Acuna. I think he's I know he hasn't won a World Series and he hasn't been able to win. Acuna hasn't been able to win in the playoffs just yet. But baseball is more than just winning, and you know that. The best player in baseball is Mike Trout.
Oh yeah, of course.
Won, so that it's different in that aspect. But I think Ronald Acuna is I think he's a better hitter and a better and a better defender. He did go 40-40 this year, 40 home runs, 40 stolen bases, and
which is amazing. That's a huge thing.
That's really hard to do. Soto did not do that, and Ronald Acuna, I'm pretty sure he's been an All-Star back-to-back years, and he's only 22. I think he's 22. He's 22, and he's just great, fantastic. He's a fantastic hitter. I give him the edge over Soto in terms of hitting and defensively. You've seen that guy, making diving catches. He's just overall I think his game's a little better than Juan Soto's. So I'm gonna start Acuna and bench Soto. Like if I'm making a ranking of outfielders in the league, I'm taking Acuna over Soto. He's a better hitter, and he has a little more around him, which helps. He's got Freeman around him. He's got Albies. He had Donaldson last year. Markakis was good, and that helps him. And Soto, he had Rendon, which was great, and Trey Turner. But I'm giving the edge to Ronald Acuna here. He's a little bit better, and then I'll bench Soto. However,
I don't know. I don't know what it is about Soto. Last year, I would have 100% said.
I get it. They're both great. They're both young. They both have bright futures. They're both playoff teams, but skill-wise, I'm taking Ronald Acuna over Soto.
I mean, it's a reasonable argument, and it's a tough question for me. Because last year, I easily had Acuna over Soto because, I just didn't see the Soto that, some people were seeing already. And I'm very happy that I do now because Soto, he proved it on the biggest stages that he's clutch. He's a very consistent player no matter what happens. Between the two, it's not like there's a massive difference between the two that can decide it. They're very, very similar players. Acuna has the edge in speed where Soto has the edge in pure playing ability, just on the field ability in my eyes.
How so? Because I don't know if I
feel like
agree with
just
that.
In general, because Acuna, I don't think has the leadership and the lead by example type that Soto has. Soto came in. How old Soto? Is he 20 or 21?
Soto, he turned 21 during the World Series.
Okay, so he was basically a 20-year-old at the beginning of the World Series and everything, and that whole playoff.
Yeah.
And at 20 years old, he led that lineup and that team. Obviously the pitching was a massive thing in that
led that lineup.
But
Rendon. Rendon's better than Soto.
No, Rendon is better than Soto in my eyes for sure. But I feel like just the leadership and the personality. Rendon's more of a quiet guy. He's more of a sit in the back, just do my job type of player. It feels like, and Soto feels like they talk so much more about Soto's fire, his just ability to get the team hype, even when they're down. He would just get one hit, and it seemed like the battery got completely recharged. So, I don't know. That was just my feeling watching the games. I'm not a Nationals fan. It's not like I like them, but I like Soto as a player. I really love Soto as a player, quite honestly. So I would just give the edge to Soto because I feel like when it comes to the intangibles, he has a little bit of an edge on Acuna. It's hard for me though. Like, it's not an easy question between the two because I think I have them like back to back in the outfielder rankings.
So do I.
So like that's where it becomes where you have to decide by point which one's better. And I'm just gonna give a slight edge to Soto. And then Benz Acuna and cut Harper. Harper cutting, I feel like, is just really easy for me. I haven't always been a fan, but even when you look at everything else, I just don't find any argument where you would start him or even bench him.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't if you're comparing him to these two, you definitely can't start him or bench him. But he's still a top 10 outfielder, and I think he's still very good. He's not a big average guy, but he hits, a lot of home runs, big slugging percentage, a lot of ribbies. Had 114 last year. That's very
I
good.
feel like that puts him in the same type of player though as a Giancarlo Stanton.
Like what a bona fide scrub hits. Like it's not like what we're looking for out of a former MVP, but it's not awful. It's not like he's hitting like 220.
But like he's being paid so much money.
Yeah, he gets paid a lot.
260, which is crazy.
I wouldn't say he's worth 330 million, but I think he's worth a lot. I think he's worth a lot. I think he's a very good outfielder when at his full potential, at his best ability. He's very good, especially hitting wise. You know he can hit. Don't act like he can't hit.
No, I know he can hit, but
he can hit very well.
But
actually,
he's not a good fielder. He's not a good fielder. Like that's.
He's a good arm. I would disagree with that.
A good arm, but he's not a good fielder. That's the thing. Like there's plenty of guys who have super strong arms. I mean, they're
like
all
Charlie Blackmon out there who looks like he's lost. I mean,
no, Blackmon is a terrible fielder, great hitter, terrible fielder. But I mean, Harper is one of the lower level outfielders, especially for his name in defense.
What do you mean by lower level? Because
I mean,
this league.
If you look up his defensive run saved for the 1 year, he was very, very low. I mean, there's guys who would 100% surprise you when it comes to low defensive run saved. I mean, Derek Jeter, I think, had the lowest in history over a 9-year period, which is super surprising because everyone regards him for his defense, but he wasn't a good defender by the metrics, which hurts to say because I like Jeter. Some people in my eyes overrate him, but we'll talk about that in a different episode for sure. But I mean, just looking at the defensive statistics, he only hits 260. I get he hits bombs, but like in that range, he's
very important.
But he's a Giancarlo Stanton then. He's a lefty hitting Giancarlo Stanton. If he's going to hit 260 and just hit bombs, I mean, that's about all he is then. And like Stanton didn't deserve that giant contract either.
He doesn't get hurt like Stanton. I mean,
no, he doesn't get hurt like Stanton, but he plays like a healthy Stanton then.
What kind of healthy Stanton are you talking about? Because a healthy Stanton was an MVP. So I would not compare Bryce Harper to Giancarlo.
A healthy Stanton won the MVP because he hit so many home runs, but Harper won an MVP when he hit over 300.
It was a lot because of home runs, but his other stats are really good too. He almost what?
I mean, he was great, but he was also.
What did he have?
He's hitting like the average Giancarlo Stanton then, I would say. Like the base Giancarlo Stanton.
We're not going to see that Stanton anymore.
No, we're not, because his health is just completely destroyed.
And he's on the game.
I don't think he could ever be healthy long enough to do that. So, I mean, that's where it becomes an issue, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you look at Bryce's defensive run saved, I just pulled them up. In the outfield overall in 2018, he had negative 24 defensive runs saved. Now, he had 10 last year, which is a great improvement, obviously. But that also shows inconsistency. So you don't know what happened the few years where he had -3, -24, -1. He had 4 years, 2012, he had -1, where he was a liability. So I feel like that's kind of the set thing with Bryce Harper, where he's kind of fickle. He's very streaky. And that would just worry me as a coach. I don't know. As a manager, a player on the team, that would worry me if I can't really trust that he's going to be the same guy day in and day out. Yeah, especially if I'm paying him that much. I mean, if I'm going to pay what he's making, I want a guy who's at least going to give me the same consistency. Even if it's consistently 275, and a homer, I mean, like per night or per few nights, obviously for homers, I'm fine with that if I'm going to pay him that much, but I'm not really okay with 260 and like a month of where he's amazing and then a month of where he's awful. No.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to wrap up start bench cut. Do you agree?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move on to Menta's Corner, everybody. Menta's favorite segment because it is his segment.
Yes,
We have a good one. We're going with, well, I mean, this is your segment, so take the lead, big guy.
I'll take it. I'll start it. So, yeah. So, I'm going to give you my top 5 receiving cores in the NFL. Receiving cores. So, we're talking about wide receiver and tight end, right?
Yes.
All right. So, I'm going to give you my top 5. Coming in at number 5, they had a great offseason. They added the All-Pro. I'm going Arizona Cardinals. Why?
Okay.
DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins on that team just makes it so much better. They also got Christian Kirk, who's pretty solid, and they got the legend Larry Fitz, who still has great hands. You know, he catches pretty much everything. So I'm going to take them at number 5 with that addition of DeAndre Hopkins. Coming at number 4, I got the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns have a great offense. It's just their coaching that's held them back, and I think their quarterback a little bit. OBJ and Jarvis Landry. We've seen what OBJ can do, and Jarvis Landry's been solid for a few years. They also have two good tight ends. Austin Hooper they acquired in the offseason, and David Njoku, who's a little unproven yet, injuries, but he's young. We might be able to see something big out of him. Coming at number 3, I got the New Orleans Saints. They got the best receiver in football, and they also had another good signing in the offseason with Emmanuel Sanders. I think those two are going to be very deadly this year. And I think, that team could definitely easily be 13-3 again. They got Jared Cook, who's a little washed up, but he's a reliable target to throw to. Taking them at number 3. Coming at number 2, I got them Kansas City Chiefs. Super Bowl champions, all right? They got Tyreek Hill, who's a speed demon down the field. Sammy Watkins, who is a pretty reliable number 2. I know he had a very shaky season this year, but I think, I think he's a good number 2. They also have Demarcus Robinson, who's not a bad option for them. And, of course, you can't forget the best tight end in football, Travis Kelce, been the clear best tight end in football the last 3 years. Can't get much better than having Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And at number 1, got to go to Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Why? Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, best receiving core in the NFL, best two receiver threats on a team. They also got Rob Gronkowski, who knows what we could see out of him. He's took a year off, so he might not be as good, but who's throwing him the ball? His favorite, Tom Brady, the GOAT. That's an offense to definitely watch out for, and you could definitely been through a big playoff run.
Definitely. I mean, I have some problems with that top 5. I mean, Bleacher Report came out with their power rankings in the last few days, and I mean, it's hard to argue with theirs. It's a good reasoning on their part. You left out 2 of the teams that I would have thought. I mean, between even just Bleacher Report didn't have the Cowboys in there, but I feel like they should be mentioned as at least a close to number 5.
But you got Amari Cooper, who's great. But then but still, Hopkins is better than Amari Cooper, so that's obvious. And then it's tough between Christian Kirk and Michael Gallup. I think that's a tough one. But I know they got CeeDee Lamb, but the Cardinals still have Larry Fitz, who's still reliable. I mean, he's not bad. So I would give the edge to the Cardinals just because of D-Hop. I mean, you know how great D-Hop is, and that just makes it instantaneous for me. I mean, that add to D-Hop, boom. I think they're going to be amazing. So.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's just like –
and I know they had the Rams. You can keep going, but the Rams, I don't think they're top 5.
I would put them top 5. I mean, look, they have a great balance between receiver and tight end.
You're going to go off on Cooper Kupp right now. I know it.
I am going to go off on Cooper Kupp. I love Cooper Kupp.
I think he's great, but he's not a top 10 receiver in the NFL.
I would argue differently. I would argue differently. He has been so efficient. His catch rate is great, especially for a guy like him. He's great.
He's very good, but
He has
I
put up
think
great
Ted
stats.
Receiver is better.
He has been so consistent. He did get hurt, which hurt his stock a little bit, but he's
Cooks.
been amazing.
Dan, if I can't put them in. They did lose Brandon Cooks, and that helped.
They replaced him with
Brandon Cooks,
Van
I would keep
Jefferson.
him in the top 5.
They replaced him with Van Jefferson. It's not like a giant
What?
replacement pick. It's not like they replaced him with CeeDee Lamb or, Jerry Jeudy or something like that. But he's still a decent receiver. He'll still get you the yards you need as your third receiver. But Cooper Kupp came into his own as a legit number 1. And don't forget Robert Woods, great receiver, very talented. That's a great 1-2 punch. It really is. And at tight end, they have a really great 1-2 punch too, in Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett. And they drafted Bryson Hopkins, who's a very solid third tight end. I would not count them out.
I don't either.
They're adding in running backs. Their running backs have great hands. Cam Akers is a great receiver out of the backfield. He was great in college as a receiver. Darrell Henderson was a decent receiver. And Malcolm Brown, I mean, he's your third guy. I don't think he's really going to have any effect. But just between the wide receivers and tight ends, they at least deserve a mention. I mean, Higbee was on fire at the end of last year. Could be a major fantasy pick. His stock is never going to be higher. So I would say if you have him in fantasy, trade him personally. Because even if he puts up these stats, I think he's 27. You're not going to get many years out of him. So if you're doing dynasty, trade him. Otherwise, draft him heavy. They lost Cooks. Those targets will probably be split up between, I would guess, Kupp, Woods, and Tyler Higbee. I think that's probably the fair big 3 that they have now. But they deserve a mention in the top 5. I mean, I have no problem with the Cardinals being there, but the Cardinals don't have a tight end.
They don't.
The Cardinals' number 1 tight end is Max Williams and Dan Arnold.
I know.
Guys who are nothing. The receivers are great, but they're second.
They're better than the Rams overall. I mean, it's Hopkins. He made such a big difference. And Christian Kirk is a good number 2. Actually, Larry Fitz probably the number 2, and Christian Kirk is.
No, I think Kirk's the number 2 right now. He's healthy, spry.
I'm not gonna diss Larry Fitz. I mean, he's
I don't want to diss Fitz either because you gotta love Larry Fitzgerald. He's one of the guys in the league that everybody loves. I mean, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't love Larry Fitzgerald except for his rivals. That's about it. But he's not the same Larry Fitz.
No, but he's reliable. I mean, you can throw him the ball, he'll catch it. And he'll put up decent stats.
I mean, you're right, but I mean, I feel like Kupp and Woods, because Woods is so far ahead of Christian Kirk. I feel like it evens out maybe by the scheme because Hopkins is way ahead of Kupp. That's obvious. But then Woods is so far ahead of Kirk, I feel like it evens out to that point. And then third receiver-wise, you either have a hobbled Larry Fitz, like an older version of Larry Fitz, which isn't a bad option, or you get a Josh Reynolds or Van Jefferson. And, I mean, that's sort of an even split, I guess. And then you go tight ends, and it's Higbee and Everett versus Max Williams and Dan Arnold. I mean, they have a –
No, they give the edge on they definitely have better tight ends. That's true.
Yeah, so, I feel like that's where it would break for me. I have no problem putting the Cardinals at 5. But I feel like there has to be more of an argument between least the Rams and them, if not the Cowboys.
That's true. It's just Kirk and Fitz, they don't put up, as big stats as the guys in the Rams, but I think they make a good overall receiving core because they're good reliable sources that you can have. Even Fitz is not the same. I just think overall, I think as a receiving core, it's hard. I think it's hard. It's tough to beat them. But tight ends, yes, the Rams have the edge. So yeah. What else about the list would you say? So I have Cardinals, and I have Browns, Saints, Chiefs, Bucks.
I would probably switch the Saints and Browns. I don't know if that's wrong to say. I don't think it is. I feel like that's pretty justified. I mean, behind Michael Thomas, they have Emmanuel Sanders, and I'm taking Jarvis Landry over Emmanuel Sanders 100 times out of 100. Not even an argument for me. Third receiver, they both have a big load of nothing, basically. They're not forces. It's Rashard Higgins and Traquan Smith. It's not really a big argument between the two. But then, I mean, you go depth-wise, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Damian Ratley, little bit more in the depth department at receiver for the Browns over a Austin Carr, Tommy Lee Lewis, those guys. And then, I mean, tight end, it's a way bigger lead in the Browns department than it is in the Saints. I mean, it's Jared Cook and Adam Troutman versus Njoku and Austin Hooper, who are two of the top 10 talented tight ends.
Don't say Njoku yet. He hasn't. He's barely played.
By raw talent, he's up there. He can't stay healthy.
I haven't seen anything yet. I'm not even talking about Njoku. I was more focused on Austin Hooper. Okay.
Who's a better tight end by far than Cook?
Don't say by far. Okay, I
would say by far.
I would not say by far. I think he's a little bit better, but Jared Cook, I mean, he's a little old and a little washed up, but you know, that's a good target for Breeze. You know, Breeze, like, he's not a big deep ball guy. If he has a good tight end there to throw him like something short.
Yeah, but Hooper's 8 years younger. He's got a ridiculous catch percentage.
No, Hooper's better, but I still think Jared Cook is a solid tight end.
And I mean, when you're comparing Odell and Michael Thomas, Odell's probably more talented than Michael Thomas. Thomas just catches everything that's thrown to him. And if Odell could stay healthy, he's probably more talented. I'm not going to say he's better, but I'm going to say he's more talented.
I don't like necessarily agree with. I don't disagree with that, but I still think Michael Thomas is more talented than OBJ right now. I mean, just because of, you know, his hands are incredible and, you know, he's broken records. You know, we've seen some of the best seasons from him. So I'm still going to take Michael Thomas in terms of talent. There's only one wide receiver right now that I would take in terms of talent over Michael Thomas. I would take Julio over in terms of.
I think Julio is the most talented receiver in the league.
He is.
Yeah, I think just purely. I mean, I might put Hopkins over Thomas. Well, I'd probably put Hopkins over Thomas in pure talent. Odell would be in that group that I might put over Michael Thomas. And I'm an Ohio State fan, so, like, this is an unbiased opinion here. Michael Thomas is not the most talented, but he's great at just catching the ball. And he's got great size, obviously. He's a big guy. So as soon as he's open, you just throw it in his area and he catches it. So his catch radius is insane, but that's like most of what he does. Is just catch stuff that's thrown to him. Which, I mean, is the job of the receiver, but I mean, yeah, like, that is his job. So, like, he does his job.
Probably has the best. No, Michael Thomas has the best hands. Can we agree with that? Maybe.
I feel like that's between him and Odell at the receiving position. But pure talent-wise, Odell's more athletic by a lot.
Not by a lot. You keep saying by a lot. No, you keep saying by a lot. Like, don't diss Michael Thomas like this. He's the best receiver in football.
He is now, obviously, because he performs at the highest level. I mean, he gets the highest target share, obviously. And I think that target share is going to go down because Sanders is there now and they have a legitimate second receiver.
They do, but Michael Thomas is still going to, be getting, running slants, screens. Drew Brees likes that, and he needs that. Drew Brees is getting old. His arm's not as strong. And Drew Brees is accurate.
Obviously, yeah. I don't know. I would for sure put the Browns ahead of the Saints. I feel like that top group is the Browns.
We haven't seen anything from it really, though. I mean, we've had OBJ and Jarvis together for 2 years now, right?
Yeah, but 1 year. But OBJ was injured for most of it. Freddie Kitchens is a horrible coach, just absolutely terrible. So I'm not going to say it's a wipe-off.
Yep.
But just based off of a pure talent standpoint, I would put the Browns ahead of them.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, obviously, but I don't know. I feel like that's – like, in that area – like, I feel like the 1 and 2 is clearly the Buccaneers and the Chiefs. That's 100% sure. I don't think anyone can make an argument between those two not being the top two. It's like it's like when you argue the top players in history, like it's like MJ and LeBron in basketball. It's, Brady and Montana at quarterback in the NFL. Like it's like that whole extra tier of players. And this is, I mean, they're so far ahead. Tight end, receiver, they're just loaded. Yeah. I mean, other than that, though, the list is pretty good.
Yeah. I just, the Saints, they made the playoffs, and now they're just getting better. I think I think they got better. Honestly,
I mean, I agree. Emmanuel Sanders and Adam Troutman are two pretty
I
damn
also
good
look at
additions.
this as a way of who do you think is going to be better? I put that into account too, and I think the Saints are going to be better core, receiving core overall than the Browns.
Well, how would you put? I don't know. I feel like the question changes if you add the running backs and quarterbacks. Because if you're getting rookie year,
We should just say
Baker Mayfield,
offense, but
if you're saying pure offense,
we said receiving. I don't mean
well, yeah, obviously, but
we
like
didn't
that's where the
count the
difference.
running backs because
Okay, well, if you're taking running backs, which running back group are you taking?
Browns, Nick Chubb.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's 100% what I'm doing. I mean,
we're talking about receivers. Michael Thomas is just incredible, and then Emmanuel Sanders is going to be a solid number 2 for them.
yeah.
Cook is still pretty good, a solid. I'm not going to say like pretty good. He's solid, top 10-ish tight end. Not better than Hooper.
No.
I think Cook's better than Njoku. We haven't really seen much of Njoku yet, so
I don't know. I mean, it's a 33-year-old Cook over a young Njoku then.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would take the Saints probably.
We'll see in the season though. I mean, that's where everything's played out anyways. So we'll see how it works out. But I mean, I think these are solid predictions though. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a good point to wrap up tonight's episode.
Yep.
Thanks everybody for listening. We're looking forward to bringing out more episodes every week. We're trying to pump them out when we can Wednesday nights and Sunday nights, uploaded on the podcast websites. And then they're up on YouTube on Thursdays and Mondays at noon. So please, like and subscribe on YouTube, the DM Sports Talk Network. It's also linked on our Anchor. So if you go to anchor.com and you look up DM Sports Talk Network and you go to our homepage, it's on there. You can find our YouTube and our Instagram. So follow us there. DM_Sports Talk on Instagram. Just like and subscribe. And I mean, if anybody listening owns a business or wants to advertise something, we are definitely open to the idea for sure. We will take your money and brag all about you. From the biggest companies to the smallest companies, we will be proud as hell to be your ad producers, I guess. Yeah. I mean, it'll be fun. We'll be making money. You'll be making money. Sounds like a deal between us. I mean, I don't see a problem with it. So let us know. If you want our email, just comment on our YouTube channel. So thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
See you soon.